Nicole. We're really excited to have all of you here today. This is something that Christina and I are really passionate about with helping you all with your accreditation. I know it's a really stressful experience, and so we want to help you as much as possible here at BestNotes. So to give you an overview of what we want to cover today, we're going to go over some of the accreditation requirements and highlights as a follow-up to our presentation last week given by Accreditation Guru. We want to show you the role of BestNotes with your accreditation, how BestNotes can help you to meet some of the standards that you may encounter with your survey. We're going to talk about BestNotes profiles, what they are, and how those will help you with your accreditation and give you some of the highlights of what features are in profiles. And then we'll share what outcome tools is and how that helps you to meet your outcomes measurement standard for Joint Commission and CARF. And then just give you next steps if you're interested in these two features, how to get started with those. Now, this is a really high level presentation. If you want to deep dive into the profile, we have done a presentation about that before, and we have that recorded, and we'll give you a copy of these slides so you can access that link later. So let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits of accreditation. They were shared by Peggy Lavin last year from Accreditation Guru, but wanted to review kind of what those are. Accreditation helps you to go above and beyond what you already need to be licensed. It shows that your organization is focused on quality and safety, and that you are one of the top organizations in the industry. It helps you to improve your administration in your organization and your service delivery that you're providing for your clients. It also helps you to reduce risk with those that you're serving. And also it increases your documentation and clinical case processes, the quality of those, and your plans, policies, and procedures. It helps you to think through those and make sure you have those in place to keep your staff and your clients safe and compliant with the standards that are needed. Why should you seek accreditation? A lot of companies who are accredited receive regulatory relief from state authorities because you have that stamp of approval that you've already met a certain level of standards. Also, many national associations are requiring their members to be accredited. The National Association of Therapeutic Schools and Programs and the National Association of Addiction Treatment Programs have both announced in conferences in the last few years that they're requiring their members to be accredited. I know there are many other associations that are requiring it as well. And then for the third item, many third-party payers and the government and states will provide incentives to those who are accredited based on your accreditation standard or your accreditation status. And so one of the things I want to see is if you all want to interact with each other, if you could put in the chat, maybe why are you looking to get accredited? Or if you're already accredited, maybe what are some of your pain points or things that you're hoping that we can help you out with in regards to whether it's clinical documentation or outcomes standard, outcomes measurement. And so you can kind of put those in the chat and we can maybe address some of those within this presentation. Now, some of you may be at the very beginning of accreditation and you don't know where to even begin. The presentation that Accreditation Guru gave last week is a great place to start. She gave some really good information about CARF and Joint Commission and what kinds of things to consider for organization. If you don't even know where to start, consultants are one of the best places to help you navigate those beginning decisions to decide even which accrediting body you want to start. We do have a partners page on our BestNotes website that lists some of our partners that you can reference and see if any of those would be a fit for your organization to help you to make that decision of which accrediting body. If you already know which one you want to go with, the Joint Commission has a manual online, and CARF also has a manual online that you can purchase. And it is kind of a significant investment. And so knowing which one you want to go with before you purchase those manuals is helpful for you in the long run. And so with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Christina. She's going to share with you about profiles and what they are, and kind of give you an overview and highlights of what the profile can do for your organization.
Hello, everyone. I thought I would start today just by defining what is a BestNotes profile. The profile is a digital set of clinical documentation that adheres to common state regulations, United Health Optum's regulations, and the standards recommended by the Joint Commission and CARF for behavioral health. The content of this digital set will receive automatic updates from BestNotes as these regulations and standards change. Included in this clinical documentation set are screenings and assessments, treatment planning documents, including transition, discharge, and aftercare, progress notes, and group notes. The role that BestNotes profiles can play in the accreditation process is that they can be a crucial element in securing and maintaining your accreditation, specifically by providing clinical documentation and workflows that clearly demonstrate adherence to those standards. Using the profiles in tandem with outcome tools also is really excellent at the demonstration of continuous organizational improvement, including data collection, aggregate data collection and analysis, progress monitoring, and outcome measurement tools. Some benefits of the profile: it is ready to use clinical documentation. It maintains a state of audit and accreditation readiness. It has been pre-programmed for intelligent movement of data, sometimes commonly referred to as the golden thread. It receives automatic updates, and it is integrated with outcome tools to really, again, demonstrate that the delivery of evidence-informed treatment practice that is occurring throughout the client's delivery of care. There's no cost to adopt the profile for your organization, and we have just around 500 companies currently in the United States successfully using the BestNotes profiles. I mentioned that if you are subscribed to a BestNotes profile, that when the content of that clinical documentation set receives an update, BestNotes also prepares and generates an automatic profile update email that is sent to all of the active users within your database, highlighting the changes that have been made when, as you can see in the screenshot below, it includes when the version was deployed, and there is a button at the bottom of that email if they want to view the complete changelog and not just the highlights. We've prepared a few slides highlighting some of the most common accreditation compliance questions that we receive at BestNotes. The assessments specifically within the profile are co-occurring capable. They follow the organization of the ASAM dimensions. They feature red provider-facing prompt language, and significantly include content areas for risk assessment, the client's SNAP or strengths, needs, abilities, and preferences, and social determinants of health that is found in the recovery living environment. And these screenshots below, this is just a visual example of what the red provider-facing prompts look like. And over on the right, This is just an example of the section or content areas within the comprehensive diagnostic assessment, also known as a biopsychosocial. The profiles also feature the intelligent movement of data, specifically meaning that the following items have been programmed to auto-populate from the assessments into the master treatment plan. This really helps the provider establish and demonstrate that person-centered treatment plans are occurring. And some specific examples of key data points are the client's presenting condition, or HPI, client-reported stressors and areas of difficulty, treatment planning participation by the family or significant others, safety plan details and needs if indicated, the client's strengths, needs, abilities, and preferences, and the client's initial goal or goals captured in the initial treatment planning section. Within the medical history sections of the assessments, it does also specifically include a question regarding the client's presence of acute chronic pain. And if that is indicated, it has a follow-up pain scale of 0 to 10 and a detail box. The medical history sections also include a nutrition subsection that of course also covers dental problems and eating habits and behaviors. The substance use history sections in the profiles include screening for nicotine, over-the-counter medications, and prescription drugs, the amount, frequency, and route, use history reporting options of current, and past, and none, the client's pattern of use options of continuous, episodic, or binge, date of last use, age of first use, age it became a problem, the client's method of acquisition of substances, and if there are any, or if there is any history of problems, physical problems associated with substance use. The profile also contains a standardized section, risk assessment section, and I'll just give you a moment to read this or peruse the content here. As you can see, there's a place to capture the client's current state of risk, as well as at the bottom, the provider is able to say that a safety plan is not indicated or say that one is needed. And then any detail that is captured in that box below has been programmed to populate to the master treatment plan, as previously mentioned. Most of our profile users or companies will utilize this risk assessment as a findings area. And if there's any element of concern, usually if the client rates at a moderate to high, they will then use outcome tools and follow up with a Columbia suicide scale of their choice. As I alluded to a second ago, the profile assessments are designed to work in tandem with outcome tools. The assessments contain a section titled the Supplemental Assessments Tools Records. And this area is intended to record any outside resources or documents that will be influencing the provider's clinical formulation or decision-making for that client. And visually, this is just an example of how that section could be utilized. And I just would like to point out that this has been designed to be responsive to the information that the client is sharing with you during the assessment. So if their presenting condition reveals that they're struggling with depression or anxiety, or perhaps when you're in the emotional behavioral section, based on the information that the client shares with the provider can then make pretty much an instantaneous decision that they would like to do a a more thorough review of that client's area of need, or if they would like to engage, say, with the PHQ-9 or the GAD-7 to not only take a deeper look, but to support that with an evidence-informed survey or instrument. And then just as a special note, the profile progress notes also include a prompt to document the therapeutic interventions that are used in session. This is the ideal area for the provider to record the use of and progress monitoring data from outcome tools.
Thank you, Christina. And I really like that we're highlighting how the profiles and outcome tools can work really well together, because I think that's kind of the connection between the two systems. A lot of times the perception is that outcome tools is an outside feature of BestNotes, but it really can work well within the clinical record, within the assessment tools and progress notes. So what is outcome tools? If you haven't heard of outcome tools, I saw in the chat, there's a few people who are starting to use it right now. It's a free integrated feature that BestNotes users can add to their BestNotes if you don't already have it. If you already have it, you know that there's a little tab in BestNotes that you can click and see the tools that you have available. It allows for dynamic data gathering that automatically uploads to the client's record. So you could be in a session with a client, taking doing a progress note or a treatment plan, and the client is reporting depression. You could go into outcome tools, administer a tool, and have some instant feedback from that client with a standardized tool. And that data can just support your clinical decisions that you're making. Within outcome tools, you can also schedule your data collection. So we have a way to set series so that you can automatically have a survey assigned at regular intervals of time, so you don't have to remember when do I need to measure this client again. We also have a variety of delivery methods, so you can deliver client surveys to clients, whether it's through their email, especially through, if you're using telehealth, you may want to email your client the survey that they need to take. If they're in your office, you can have a kiosk iPad so you can get electronic results without having to print out the survey and having a staff member input those results later, although you can also do that option. And there's also an interview option so that your staff can interview the client and input the results while they are talking to their client. You can aggregate your data. We have an aggregate data report that aggregates all your clients' results, as well as an individual client progress chart so that you can see the client's progress over time. And one of the main things that is really big with, or really important with your accrediting bodies is progress monitoring. And if you don't know what progress monitoring is, it is measuring your client on admit, but also during treatment. So you're measuring your client early and often while you have that client in treatment so that you can make any adjustments to their treatment along the way as they report how they're doing. In outcome tools, we also have a growing library of instruments. So as surveys, we continually add surveys to our questionnaire library. You'll see a link right there that you can click so that you can review our questionnaire library and see if any of those tools will work for your needs. And then just take note that if you wanted to use outcome tools as a standalone product, that is available outside of BestNotes so that you can use it as a standalone. Here's an example of what a PHQ-9 would look like as a completed instrument in your BestNotes or within outcome tools. You'll notice in the right-hand corner where it gives you the consideration of major depressive disorder and severity. This client scored a 20 on the PHQ-9, which is in the severe range. The completed survey, you would be able to see the completed questionnaires completed questions right here. This is how this client answered on these first 2 questions of the PHQ-9. To review some of the Joint Commission requirements, and we'll also review briefly the CARF requirements. In 2018, the Joint Commission came out with they were always required outcomes measurement, but they weren't very specific about what exactly needed to be done. And so in 2018, they updated their standard to say that you needed to use a standardized tool that has a reliable change index. So it shows you that the client is either in a clinical range or that as they take it at multiple points of time, that it's showing that their score is changing. And you need to use those results that come from that instrument to inform your goals and objectives on the individual's plan for care, treatment, and services. In addition to measuring your client and making adjustments to their treatment, the standard wants you to use routine outcomes measurement data so that you can make quality improvement within your organization. So you're aggregating your client data and making informed decisions based off of how your entire client population is reporting. Research has shown that in multiple studies that clients make larger clinical gains in a shorter period of time if you're faithful in measuring your progress over time. So as you are in your sessions and you're making these decisions, this just gives you another benefit and another piece of information that can inform your decisions directly from the client, that are reported from the client. CARF requirement is the organization implements a performance measurement and management plan that includes progress monitoring. So again, you need to be doing progress monitoring for both Joint Commission and CARF, and measuring client input as well as clinician input. So it shouldn't just be the clinician listening to the client and making those decisions. It should be a joint effort between both the client and the clinician, and using that information. CARF has lined out other outcomes requirements that can be found in their manual. This is just the one that was related to progress monitoring that we mentioned here, and you can see the reference on our page here. Now, when you have your survey and your surveyor asks you, can you show me your outcomes measurement data? Outcome Tools provides, this is a client progress chart. This is a PHQ-9. You can see up here in the right-hand corner, the PHQ-9 given on admit, 30 days after admit, 60 days after admit, and 90 days. So this person is measuring the client every 30 days until discharge. And so you can see this client has progressively improved. This is an ideal situation right here where your client came in at a high level and has continually made clinical gains as you have administered that PHQ-9. Now, this is just informing. This isn't saying this is exactly what is happening, because the client is self-reporting. You may find out other things, and that's why you as clinicians need to also use where you as clinicians need to also input whatever you're finding out from the client directly. Some other features of Outcome Tools are that you can create series of instruments. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, where you can set delivery timeframes. You can also deliver instant questionnaires. So on the fly, you can make on the fly decisions that are meaningful and relevant while you're in your clinical session. Those results are instantly accessible on the client's BestNotes record. So a snapshot of that data gets put into the client record. Measuring outcomes is an ongoing activity. It informs you where you need to do a deeper dive with the client. Completing an assessment at admit and then again through treatment helps you monitor on a regular basis and demonstrates therapeutic effectiveness, called progress monitoring, which we've talked about. This also increases your utilization and engagement with BestNotes, because you're using both systems in tandem with each other, back and forth with information. You'll see in BestNotes, this is where that Outcome Tools tab will be. On this client, you can see that you've got your completed assessments here, who has completed them and what their score is. And those are those snapshots that you can pull up side by side with your treatment plan and your progress notes while you're meeting with the client, and you can review those results and say, well, you reported this on your PHQ-9. Let's talk about that. Now, if you're wanting to get started with outcome tools, the first step is to review that questionnaire library. Look through it. Maybe you're already administering some of those surveys on paper, or you're doing it in another system. If you review those and say, hey, that you've already got this in your outcome tools, we can add them and create your outcome tools account. Make sure you're choosing instruments that are ideal for your organization. Joint Commission and CARF don't specifically say you need to use this tool. What they want you to do as an organization is to communicate with each other and say, these are the pieces of information we want to know, and this is the tool that's going to get us that information. And it's really personal to your level of care, and it should be an internal decision across your organization. Also, having those discussions helps you get buy-in across all of your clinicians and all of your staff that would be using these tools, and they're more likely to use it if they had input into which tools should be used. After you decide what instruments you want to use, go ahead and email us at team@bestnotes.com, and we'll get your outcome tools account set up. And after that account is set up, I'll schedule a training with you. And then the last is establish team buy-in for measuring outcomes and schedule staff trainings. The more staff that know how the outcomes are being used, and the more likely they are to use those tools and be engaged with the system and be engaged with outcome tools. So in summary, to summarize what we've been sharing with you, accreditation is a team sport. Your whole organization has to be engaged and working together to come up with the policies and procedures that are needed, but also to input the right information into the clinical documentation and to use the instruments that are designated at the timeframes that are designated, so you can get the information that's needed from your clients. BestNotes and BestNotes profiles and outcome tools are features within your BestNotes that you already can have access to. They just have to be turned on for you. So if you're thinking, well, I've been using BestNotes for a long time and I don't have either of these, it's something that we will turn on for you and do a training with you to get you started with those. There are no extra fees to use these features. They can be turned on at any point for you. And the BestNotes team, we're ready here to support you and provide any kind of support needed and answer any of your questions. So with that, we wanted to ask those of you that are on the call, and if you're interested in learning more about the information, there is a poll that we just put up. If you wanted to, if you're interested in profiles, Christina will be in contact with you. If you're interested in outcome tools, I will be in contact with you. My name is Kristen Frankum. If you want both profiles and outcome tools, you can click that. And then if you're not interested at all, you just wanted some information, that is completely fine. You are welcome to email us at team@bestnotes.com or give us a phone call at any point. And then again, if you would like a deeper dive into the demo prior to talking to any of us, there is that YouTube video that you can connect there. So this is
based on this poll response, either myself or Kristen or both of us will reach back out to you to schedule an individual meeting for you and your organization, so that we can really do a thorough and holistic evaluation of your needs and really clarify what to have the opportunity to get very specific.
all right. So if you've had a chance to fill out that poll, it's saying that the host and the panelists cannot vote. I don't know if anybody is seeing that.
No, we have some answers on our poll.
Okay.
Kristen, and Christina, do you mind if maybe I could ask a few questions from our attendees?
Yes, and
finish up with
we'll
that
turn
poll.
it over to you for your questions and answers.
Awesome. Christina or Kristen, do you have any information about the environment of care for accreditation standards, the life safety, the leadership sections? Today, we mostly covered the CTS standards of JCO. Do you have more information for our attendees about that, or where they could find information of that?
Oh, absolutely. So really, BestNotes, since we are just an EHR, we can only exert influence over those clinical standards, if you will, but the manuals that are available from Joint Commission and CARF are complete. There'll be a full chapter on your environment of care. There's a chapter regarding your internal policies with your employees. I mean, of course, we at BestNotes, we have those manuals and we have that information. But since those manuals are copywritten and are available for purchase from those organizations, ideally, if you're really interested in those details, I would recommend reaching out either, to an accreditation consultant or potentially purchasing, a single license copy for your organization of those manuals from either Joint Commission or CARF. And we included links to those manuals in one of our slides early on. And it's specifically the link inside of those websites. So if you just do a Google search, you might have to make 5 or 6 clicks to actually find where to purchase those manuals. The links we've provided are the actual page where you would be able to select the manual and purchase.
Thanks, Christina. We had a specific question about the Joint Commission standards on employee files in BestNotes.
Oh, yes. So I think my very first question would be, is your company currently using BestNotes to manage and track your HR activities? If you are not, and if this is a surprise to any of you, BestNotes is capable of providing a human resources solution already, and there's no extra cost. So if you are specifically interested, I would recommend setting up a meeting with myself, and we could really evaluate your facility's needs for human resources record keeping, and we could also compare that with the requirements of whatever accrediting body you're working with, and make sure that you have basically all of the elements to fulfill that need. It is not HR, human resources, using BestNotes for human resources is not required. But please be aware that human resources, policies, procedures, documentation is a required chapter from both accrediting bodies. I think a specific element or item that I could mention is that you have to have a procedure in place for employees to be able to report a grievance, and that needs to be a record that is kept within the system, and you need to have a policy in place that determines how your employees are supposed to submit a grievance, and then how you as a facility are plan to respond when a grievance comes in. If you're using BestNotes as your human resources record keeping system, then yes, it would need to be in BestNotes, or some of those elements would need to be in BestNotes. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Christina, for answering those questions. We did put a link in the chat by some members of our team of the full video to our BestNotes profile. We invite you all to check that out. Following up again, if you would like to be using the profile at your organization, please reach out to team@bestnotes.com as well as Outcome Tools. I will be sending out the link to this webinar and the slides in a follow-up email in the next few days. Please feel free to reach back out to us if you have any questions. And thank you so much for joining us on our webinar today.